My report is on the precarious persistence of the endangered Sierra Madre yellow-legged frog, Rana Muscosa, in Southern California, USA. This article that I found on Google Scholar is written by Adam R. Backlund, Cynthia J. Hitchcock, Elizabeth A. Gallegos, Julie L. Yee, and Robert N. Fisher. This study was about the distribution and the status of the Sierra Madre, a yellow-legged frog, Rana Muscosa. In 2000 to 2009, 150 streams and lakes were surveyed for Rana Muscosa, R. muscosa. Only 9 locations of the 150 had populations. R. muscosa is an endemic to California. Historically, they occur most frequently in the Sierra Madre, San Gabriel, San Jacinto, San Bernardino, and Palomar Mountains. Once common through these mountain ranges, the population has been declining since the late 1960s. Taxonomic revisions from 2001 to 2002 revealed 2 major clades with different evolutionary traits. These 2 clades were separated into 2 separate species, Rana sierra and Rana muscosa. The southernmost group, which we are focusing on, is named R. muscosa. When R. muscosa was identified, it was deemed endangered by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife on August 1, 2002. In an effort to restore lost populations, Scoville evaluated R. muscosa via microsatellite and mitochondrial analysis and found a high degree of historical isolation in the species. R. muscosa is currently classified as an endangered by IUCN, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and the state of California. The Fish and Game Commission listed R. muscosa as an endangered species in the Endangered Species Act, effective April 1st, 2013. This is a diagram and map of the locations in which, throughout these mountain ranges, they did their surveys from historical landmarks of where these species originated, and these are only 9 where these populations were found. Using 694 historical records from SoCal museums, reports, publications, and field notes, they determined the prioritization of specific survey locations to locate existing and historically existing populations and their possible declines. Using a histogram to determine the number of sites where collections were made each decade. This is the histogram, where from 1901 to 2010, the number of localities and the number of museum vouchers they watched as through the decades, the sites and populations were less frequent as we got closer to present times. Surveying a total of 150 unique streams and lakes. These surveys typically included visits to historical and non-existing population and assessing neighboring sites to determine their habitability. Surveys were conducted during the daytime during peak activity season, late April to October. Surveys were conducted by walking in or alongside these streams slowly to detect all age classes and record and process individuals that meet the criteria for this study, typically adults. Multiple site visits were made to sites with prominent existing populations to determine detection probability. A minimum of 1 visit was made to all other 150 sites to determine the habitability and occupancy of R. muscosa. Using data from 2001 to 2009 over repeated surveys at all sites with populations to determine the detection probability of 89%. These were determined by mark and recapture methods. Due to restrictions for juvenile marking and the difficulties brought by marking tadpoles and eggs, this study only covers adult R. muscosa. The 8th and 9th locations in the study were excluded from the final numbers of detection probability due to the 8th location, Vincent Gulch, having no same-year recaptures, and the 9th location having only 5 adult female R. muscosa. During the surveys, all frogs were assessed for disease and parasites and swabbed for amphibian cryptid fungus. R. muscosa were recorded from 1903 to 2002, with a sharp decline after the late 1960s. There were also a decline noted in the sites habitable by the frogs. Since 1971, there has not been a decade where R. muscosa was collected for more than 5 sites. Population from Bear Gulch and City Creek became undetectable for a short period, but were later recorded being present in low numbers. Despite multiple visits over the years, R. muscosa was undetectable at these 3 historical locations for the species: Hall Canyon, North Fork San Jacinto, and East Fork San Gabriel Rivers. All sites with known populations have a detectability of 89%. Detectability estimates for repeated surveys go up to 99% after 2 surveys, and up to a whopping 100% after 3 or more surveys. The site was a strong influencing factor in recapture rates, Devil Canyon and Little Rock Creek being the highest, and Fuller Mill Creek having the lowest. Abundance estimates in 2009 total 166 adults across 7 locations. Over 9 years of repeated surveys, we have only been able to mark 314 unique individuals across all sites. Over the 9-year study, populations have been observed increasing in Little Rock Creek and Dark Canyon, decreasing in Bear Gulch and City Creek, and have been stable in Big Rock Creek, Devil's Canyon, and Fuller Mill Creek. A total of 707 R. muscosa adults, juveniles, and tadpoles were swabbed between 2001 and 2009 for amphibian cryptid fungus, and 44 tested positive. That's 6%. Of all the positive tests, they were all low levels of the fungus. Verdenberg in 2007 reported a 98.1% decline of R. muscosa in SoCal. Within this study, R. muscosa is presumed extinct from the Palomar Mountains. City Creek is the only known population remaining in San Bernardino Mountains. City Creek population has declined extremely and is at risk of extinction. All other remaining populations are small and geographically isolated from one another. All these populations appear to have very little interpopulation gene flow. Detection of R. muscosa where it occurs is very high, at 89%. This does not include random sites, only where the detection of R. muscosa has been cited. A high detection of this species is consistent with historical records before and during the late 1960s. R. muscosa are diurnal, basking on sunny rocks, and their tadpoles are present year-round, making them easily detectable. Current abundance estimates are small, for 1 to 55 adults per population. This data indicates that most populations have fewer than 10 pairs of adults to reproduce. R. muscosa is very vulnerable due to these low numbers and can be heavily affected by stochastic events. Wildfires followed by heavy rains caused mudslides that decimated the R. muscosa population at City Creek. R. muscosa was later observed, but in very low numbers. In 2005, they have still not recovered their populations. The population at City Creek and Bear Gulch were the largest in SoCal between 2000 and 2003, but now are almost completely extinct. Amphibian cryptid fungus has been detected across all 9 populations of R. muscosa in SoCal. However, a mass die-off has never been observed. After further research into possible causes of R. muscosa decline, some of the possibilities may include a fungus outbreak and die-off. A stocking of predatory fish could be a contributing factor to their decline, but most notable factors causing the decline are drought, wildfires, human urbanization and recreation, and non-native trout being a predator to the species. How do we preserve these populations? In this article, they discussed ways to protect and expand the population, as well as increasing the population and in restoring natural habitats where they once resided. Establishing neighboring populations to promote natural recolonization and gene flow between the populations would also help preserve this population. What's being done to help R. muscosa? There is work being done with the state of California, federally and locally, to decrease human recreation and urbanization of R. muscosa habitats. Removal of non-native predatory fish and fish barriers to keep them out of R. muscosa habitats have been installed. There is also now a captive breeding program for the species to help bring up their numbers and get the species back on track. There will be continued monitoring and help for the R. muscosa population to keep it from extinction. There will also be attempts at remediating the habitats and populations that were once historically observed.